Okay. All right. So the town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to a board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring, but it is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Sorry. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you call in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use your raise hand function available on Zoom, or if you're calling in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. Okay. It's all yours, Andrew.
All right, so why don't we get started? So let's see. We have approval of meeting minutes, May 11th, 2020. Does anybody have any corrections or edits? Oh,
Anna,
we can't hear you, Anna.
Sorry about that. I had various small edits, and I just sent them electronically to Amy. So none of them were material. So.
All right, perfect.
I had one thing. I just had a question on what was actually discussed on the 6 Cottage Way project.
Which project, sorry?
The 6 Cottage Way for the amendment to order conditions, project modification. There's a sentence. It's in like the middle of the paragraph where he also described other work outside the buffer zone, including installation of a well, septic tank, and pump chamber. And then you have as-built provided. Were those as-built or were they construction drawings or proposed plans? Have they already installed that stuff?
Yeah, they are. They have installed some of that stuff, not all of it, but outside the buffer zone.
All right, that's all I have.
All right, does anybody else have any other edits? All right, hearing none, does anybody have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes as amended.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor? Do we have to do a roll call? All right. So, do you want me to read the names or?
Yeah, if you just read them, they'll say yay or nay or yes or no. Or
Okay, Carl?
Carl Melberg, yay.
Kyle?
Kyle Maxfield, yay.
Julie?
Julie Rupp, yay.
Anna?
Anna Mayer, yay.
All right, and myself, Andrew, aye. That was awkward.
Yay or I? A.
Oh.
How do you spell it? I mean, how do you pronounce A-Y-E? Just A.
A?
I. I.
I.
Because that's how it is in the meeting minutes. It's like A-Y-E.
Yeah.
But we're saying yay, so I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Oh.
We digress, or I digress.
All right.
There are many ways to answer in the affirmative.
Yes.
So we'll move on to administrative discussion. Request for certificate of compliance, 25 Crane Road.
Yeah, this is my first project with you guys. Mickey Jensen's, he had the driveway crossing of two little intermittent streams. It's all done and stabilized, and they've gotten as-built, so he is, I believe, ready for a certificate of compliance.
Oh, perfect. Would anybody like to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance?
So Amy, you're satisfied?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I'll make a
We
mo-
went back and forth a bit, but yeah, he's good now.
Okay. I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance to, oops, what was the address?
25 Crane Road. DEP
25
file
Green
number-
Road.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Anna,
And the mayor, aye.
and Andrew, aye. All right, so it's unanimous.
Okay.
All right, moving on, we have a request for extension at Chestnut Lane. DP file numbers 204-649 and 204-650.
These are the two roads over at Chestnut Lane. One's the subdivision road, and the other one is a private road that goes up the hill with the wetland crossing. Colby Field is working on it, and he does have a punch list, but everything got slowed down because of the COVID, and a lot of the contractors didn't want to go into a neighborhood and do work, in March and early April. So even though technically the clock is tolled, and so it's not ticking for his extensions, I thought it might be best to just, as soon as he comes back, things go, he's gonna have to get an extension anyway. So I thought it might be worth, if you're willing to give him 1, 2, 3 or whatever, it might be worth just getting it done now. It expired towards the end of June, so.
So you were thinking maybe like 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months?
I was thinking of just going for a year.
Oh, a year. Oh,
Yeah, he's not going to be able, he's probably going to fall town meeting to get the road accepted. And I would tend to think that keeping it open until then, in case something comes up, is potentially worth it. He has ordered the plans for the wetland mitigation. And as we were saying earlier, hasn't been able to get in there and actually pick them up yet and put them in, so.
all right.
Or
How's the
you
board?
can give him a shorter time,
Why is he doing this as opposed to the developer?
I don't know the details. I think essentially, one way of looking at it is in a sense, he's kind of bought out Paul Gas, and he's taking this on to get it done. They've worked a deal.
Okay, that's, I
Yeah,
just.
he was hoping to get the bond out of it, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
point because he has a vested interest having property up there and
yes.
wanted it done and figured he could get the bond out of it if he gets it done. So,
Right. That was my recollection too from the meeting we had with him. So I think it makes sense, given the COVID situation to, and again, I think when we talked to him before, there's a conversation around, this ends in June. We probably are going to have to talk about an extension. And so my recollection was that was already on the table. And then so particularly with the COVID situation, a lot of people just obviously haven't been able to operate, to full capacity. So, I would support, if the intent is to get the work done and come to fall town meeting to get the road accepted, extending, into maybe September or October, I think would make sense.
Yeah.
And I can't hear you.
Sorry. He's coming to fall meeting or this coming meeting. I thought.
Amy said fall.
It would be the fall. Sorry, there's someone who's trying to get in and can't get in for some reason, so.
Oh, wow.
So Mark, I was going to send him and see if maybe you can help him out. Because other people are in. Sorry. So do you want to say September 1st, October 1st? You can always come back in and get more, but that way, you know, you got to pay attention too, so.
October 1st.
Oh, so you're not giving him a full year, it's just to the end of the building
Yeah.
season?
Yeah, and you certainly did that for a bit with the point, is you're giving them extremely short extensions to get their attention.
Yeah, I feel like we want to keep a kind of a tight rein on this project, given all the delays, and certainly that's not on Colby's shoulders by any stretch. But I think this project needs kind of a tight leash, you know, so we can keep tabs on it. So I think October 1st is reasonable.
All right. How does everybody feel about that? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion. Is everybody all set? Kyle?
Go for it, Carl.
So we would grant an extension to get the balance of the work done at Chestnut Lane that was started by the developer, to bring that to completion by October 1st. This would be an extension to October 1st.
Do we have a second?
Second it.
All right. All those in favor? Carl?
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle?
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Julie?
Julie Rupp, aye.
Anna?
Anna Mayer, aye.
And Andrew, aye. All right, perfect. All right, so it's 7:45, so why don't we jump into our continued discussion, 9 Air Road Enforcement Order. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I totally forgot one thing, because Chris is here. The library wanted to come in at the end to discuss some project changes that they have and get your opinion on whether it's a minor modification or an amended order of conditions. Are you willing to hear him at the end of the meeting?
Sure.
Okay, so Chris, we'll see you maybe more like around 9.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So anyway, so we'll open up our continued discussion for 9 Air Road Enforcement Order, Mass DEP file number 204-898. Is there anyone here to speak to that?
Yes, yeah, they're having a little trouble getting in by seeing.
Yeah, sorry. This is actually on my iPhone because I couldn't get the laptop app to work. So, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to continue on with this. Can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Great. So tonight's discussion is to follow up on the enforcement order for 9 Air Road. The commission conducted a site walk over a week ago on the site, where we were able to observe the existing basins along the site entrance area. We observed the stone that was along the edge of the roadway up to the catch basin, and we also observed the wetlands and the outlets to those 2 catch basins that discharge across the street into the wetlands itself. There was confirmation that there's no wetland restoration required, so there's no restoration plan required that needs to be prepared or implemented to restore any wetlands that have been impacted. There was agreement that the curb line along Air Road was an improvement to keep the water from the roadway off the site, and with one concern being raised that there was a lack of a berm between the utility pole and the site to prevent water from coming back onto site around the utility pole. I know, Amy, I sent you those photos showing you the earthen berm, so showing the gravel removed and then the berm in place, where we actually loamed and sodded the berm so that it was actually stabilized in place. Were you able to circulate those to the commission?
That was before the sidewalk, right?
That was after the site walk. We
For the replacement.
Yeah, it was just with Yumi and Julie that made it there to look at that after the fact.
I did not get a chance to circulate those, but I did actually drive by today just to confirm.
So you were able to see it. So there are actually 2 berms there. We actually did 2 berms, mainly just as an extra precaution to make sure that we were extra careful in that area. So we implemented 2 different berms in that location. My apologies, I had this all lined up on my laptop, and I can now show you those photos. Just give me one moment. I have them where. So the photos are going to show 2 berms. One is constructed right at the utility pole where the commission requested. The other one was located a little further on, just to keep that area semi-stable. If any water decided to pool, it would just pool there versus kind of start running towards the actual structure itself. So the first photo that I'm going to show here, my apologies, this is very crude, but this is what I had to do. So this is the first berm here. You can see this is the first berm here. We have the utility pole and the berm that was installed there. And then the other photo is going to show the second berm, which is further along. The utility pole is down here. The second berm, again, in the area, just to allow water to pool here versus just rush right into that area, just as a precaution. Those 2 berms were installed as requested to just affirm that the stormwater calculations that were done by Ducharme Gillis verify that the runoff volumes that are running to those basins on site are strictly from the site area itself and not from roadway runoff, and therefore the volumes of those basins will never be compromised by impervious surface runoff from the roadway getting onto the site, which was a concern the commission raised, and it was something that we had assumed that was in the calculations, and we knew the asphalt berm was going in. The commission was able to see that berm in during the site walk. I believe that was the main issue with the site walk that was raised of additional information that was needed, was getting this berms in place to ensure that the water didn't circumnavigate it. We've had some very dry weeks, so we haven't been able to see the site change much in regards to storms because we haven't had any large rain events to test these measures. The last rain event was several weeks ago. I was there, and we saw some ponding in one of the basins. The other basin was dry, no runoff leaving the site, well controlled, and that was an 1.5 inch storm. And so we anticipate that a 3-inch rainstorm will not impact even the capacity that we have, because the stormwater has been modeled for a dirt road surface rather than a loose gravel material, which is what the site is primarily, except for the narrow areas where the trucks are driving, and even it's really mainly where the tires are actually driving that you're getting some compaction, but after that it loosens up fairly quickly, and the runoff runoff movement around the site in those areas is very minimal, and it's not traveling very far. So we feel that the basins are sized adequately. They're designed very conservatively, because we're using a compacted gravel roadway surface runoff rate versus a loose gravel rate, and so therefore we think that the models are adequate for what's necessary here. And again, we're continually looking at things as the site changes to make sure that we're maintaining site control, because we do not want to have sediment even get towards the buffer zone, let alone get close to those catch basins that could lead to the wetlands. And so we were hoping tonight that the commission could formally affirm that the enforcement order does not need a restoration plan implemented. There's no wetlands that need to be repaired or mitigated, and that the measures in place are sufficient, and I think definitely above and beyond what was shown in the original approved plans for site control with regards to temporary stormwater control. And during site progress, we've updated our SWIP to as the commission requested, just to make sure that things were in order and well and above the requirements. We've had our spill protection plan sent to anybody who's on site to make sure they understand that this is a spill protection plan that's on site. We don't have fluids of any type stored on site, and the off-site contractor who would do fueling on site, he's got his own spill protection plan, plus he has ours. He signed off that he agrees to ours as well. So we have a double layer of spill protection as well, with the spill kits on site for any potential that's there, and we're monitoring that closely and keeping an eye on the equipment that's there. So we're hoping that the commission could move tonight to lift that enforcement order, seeing that it states needing a restoration plan, which was determined not to be necessary, and that there's site controls are in place and clearly adequate for what's happening there. Knowing that we're definitely understand that the commission is going to be watching the site carefully, and we're definitely going to be keeping a sharp eye on things.
All right, comments from the board?
Sure.
Julie, since you and Kyle went to the site, what did you think when you went to the site?
Yeah. So I was going to say one of the things that we discussed when the full commission was on site was the stormwater calculations. The watershed line did not include runoff from the roadway. And so that was one of the things that Mark and I discussed, kind of at length when we were on site. And so that was a concern that we had brought up. And so the curb that has been constructed, is basically moving that watershed boundary line. The concern was that the runoff from the roadway was taking up capacity, and that capacity was not reflected in the calculations. However, since the applicant has blocked off that area with the the curb on the roadway, as well as created the berm that goes perpendicular. So it kind of closes off and creates additional capacity. Those measures, coupled with short circuiting the upper portion of the site, I feel satisfied that, the applicant has taken the measures that, based on the calculations, appear to be appropriate for, mitigating the concern for sediment making it to that storm drain. I think that curb, I think Mark and the applicant have acknowledged that curb is going to be a high maintenance item. So they're going to have to keep a really close eye on that. And I think, Mark, you indicated that, obviously it's been really dry, but I would anticipate you will be out, or someone with your firm will be out observing, when it rains to see what the site is doing, because I think we need to keep an eye on that. And if it's, we made it clear that if it's not working, it would need to be addressed in the future. But I think the measures that have been taken, and based on that, and based on the calculations that Mark helped walk me through, even with the watershed boundary being at the edge of the road instead of the middle of the crown of the road, I think the measures taken, are supported by the calculations and appear to be reasonable, as long as that curb is maintained. And, the applicant, I think, understands that they would be on the hook for, repairing or improving the situation if there were, unanticipated issues or blowout of the berm. So that's, I think, what they've done is reasonable. But I think the curb is a high maintenance item.
I would agree, and we are definitely monitoring the site carefully, and we want to get out there the next storm, to be out there during the rain to make sure that things are functioning as we have been designed, because we understand that we want this to function the way it is, because it's the best design that we can have to ensure that we control the site and mitigate any issues.
So I have a question. How long do you anticipate this site to be open, as opposed to kind of sealed up and being used as an access road for 3 residences? I mean, how long do we have to be concerned about this site being monitored, and about that berm holding up and everything else that we're putting into place here?
I think an anticipation, is about a year. A single family house lot by itself can take 6 months plus, just depending on the site work that has to go in, So I think with this site, with the size that we're talking about at least a year. But I think that with Descharman Dillis and us on board for the site, the applicants definitely put together a good team to make sure they're monitoring it. Far and above what a normal site contractor would do is he would just do his own SWIPs by himself, and they've contracted a separate entity to do that, and us as well, to make sure that there's a on-present site of someone who's on site strictly to make sure the SWIP's in compliance. Doesn't worry about what's going on in site. We're there just to make sure compliance is implemented, and we want that because that's our job and that's our only role on that site. We don't care about the timing of the construction. We don't care about what their schedule is. We care about compliance and control. That's what we want.
And I fully agree, but part of what we want also is to get that site sealed up as quick as we can. And, you know, for 3 house lots, I wouldn't think it would take over a year, to be honest with you. I think we should be able to get that site sealed up a lot sooner than that, rather than having it open like that. That's just my 2 cents. It's something that I'm just concerned about.
I understand. I mean, even once you get foundations in, it takes a while to do framing and everything else out here. I mean, yeah, the site work outside can be completed substantially, but it depends on the timing of all those things. And that's why I want to say here, I don't want to say something more aggressive that we feel is on the edge. I think a year, I think that's what we're reasonably anticipating.
Well, I'm wondering if we should get some kind of time frame associated with this as we move forward. We're okay coming off what Julie said, moving to the next step, but I think we may want to think about getting some kind of time frame associated with it.
I mean, if the commission's concerned about winter stabilization, we can definitely make sure that we come back before the commission in early September to kind of review site conditions, where we're at, what our plans are for the winter, because stabilization for the winter starts happening in mid fall. And if that's a concern, we can definitely put that on my calendar. I'll put that on my calendar if that's what the commission wants, and I'll definitely make sure that we provide Amy with an update on what the plans are for winter stabilization. Considering that we will be going through that, and that definitely would be good information for the commission to have to feel that we are controlling the site.
Amy, I have a question for you regarding other stuff that we looked at regarding the upstream catch basin. Have you talked to the town? Or, I mean, that's going to affect the water that they're dealing with that catch basin.
You mean the one with the erosion issue?
Yeah, the one that had the erosion across the way from it. Right?
Which is kind of different. Yeah, I've communicated with DOT because it's going to be their issue with Bill Clarity over there. Yep. And I can't remember who he was going to send out. I haven't heard back from him, so I haven't coordinated a visit with them yet. We're trying to push it along.
Okay. There's no cleaning out the catch basin will be enough anyway, right? We don't know if catch
yeah, and I mean theoretically the road is crowned away. They need to have a little bit better solution than digging a hole in the side of the road.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to lift the enforcement order, and as a result of not having to do wetland restoration or other action such as that. So I make a motion to lift it.
Do we have a second? Oh, I see Jim. Hey, can you hear us?
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, do you want to take over?
Why don't you finish this one up?
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Andrew.
All right. All those in favor? Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Julie.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Anna.
Anna Mayer, aye.
Jim.
James Fickett, aye.
And Andrew, aye. All right.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the commission's time.
I will get you guys a letter, Mark.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
I see we're kind of at the enforcement order on 55 Bruce Street, Is it 54 Bruce Street at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Harris Kaplan, 54 Bruce Street.
So this was, let me just give a quick summary where we are. There, someone had called about work happening along the side of his driveway. Did I send you guys pictures? I can pull some up in a second, with a bunch of, and you can describe it better, Mr. Kaplan, of clearing a little bit in the wetland and certainly within the 50 foot of it. So I issued an enforcement order so they could stop and reassess what they wanted to do and where they had to go from there. So I will let Mr. Kaplan take it.
Yeah, that's correct. The intent is really just to clear dead trees and undergrowth from the area next to the driveway on the north side of the property, with no further intent for any kind of development after that.
Wait, there was growth going into the driveway or over the driveway? What was the situation that caused you to clear it?
It was just overgrown, messy land with a lot of down trees. So there wasn't any specific dangerous situation. It was just kind of making the property more usable and more attractive.
Can you see the picture I just put up?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
wait a minute here. The driveway, I'm taking the picture from Bruce Street. The driveway is just out of view here. And you can see the area that was cleared here and a bit of it going into the wetlands. The jewel weed's already popping back up again, but there's work in the wetlands there.
Amy, was something that you sent along was a mitigation or a reestablishment plan or planting? What, I put together a very rough restoration plan. Amy, do you want me to share my screen with that document?
Actually, I'm trying to get it up now.
Okay.
Oops, I had a little trouble going back and forth sometimes.
I mean, that looks really denuded. Did you use any sort of chemical or what did you use to clear it?
No chemicals at all. It was just Matt Hayes landscaping. He has a machine that kind of mulches everything in place. So it really cleared things out very cleanly. But
Just round everything up?
Yeah, basically.
Matt Hayes is actually also the guy who did the Nagog Hill Orchard mowing and brush clearing. So he does a good job. He should have known better what he was doing.
Should have known, yeah.
You can see the restoration plan here, which would just include a couple trees and then some bushes down here. This area being particular where it kind of got into the wetlands. And I'm just not clear how the rest of this, what the final condition of the rest of it would be like, if it's just wood chips or reseeded, or haven't gotten that far.
Haven't really gotten that far, but I think that, there's some wood chips that were left from the cleanup effort, and the intent really is just to leave it as is. Not really intending to do anything else in that area, just leave it.
Is there a before photo available? Like, do you have a photo of this area, Mr. Kaplan?
I'm sure I do. I'm not quite ready to share it. I could dig it up.
Okay. And I guess I'm feeling on this one that I'd like a site walk is kind of where I'm leaning with this one.
Yeah, I would
I
agree. I can't really picture, like, if that little area is the wetland, I guess I'm not having a sense of where the wetland line and would be, or where, because 50 feet from that is also unclear, or so where's the no disturb line? It's like that.
Yeah, I think the majority of the work is probably in the 50-foot no disturb.
Yeah.
There's a brook that goes through there. It comes off of my property. And
Yeah, I
goes
saw that blue
back
line.
down to my meadow down below. Having driven by there a number of times periodically, it was a lot of, I don't know if there was invasive stuff there or not, but it was kind of just brush and some tree limbs and stuff had come down, if I remember correctly. So I would think some high bush blueberries or something like that might be appropriate there.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be glad to do whatever the Conservation Commission thinks for planting some native Massachusetts plants. We were, we didn't really have a plan. We were considering doing something like that anyway, after it was cleared, to put some, at least some flowering trees in that area. So if Massachusetts, wild blueberries would be acceptable, then we'd be glad to do that.
And I would say, maybe shadbush and pussy willow.
They should do well.
Or other types of willow.
Do you want us
Maybe
to discuss how far to do the plantings and how to deal with the ground cover, if any?
I think a site walk makes sense.
I agree.
I think
It's so
if
hard to
there's
say.
any pictures of the prior vegetation, was there anything stabilizing the area? Was there like any mature plant, or was it just down dead material?
Not really. There's a row of boulders that I think was left there when the property was developed, and all of the clearing happened on the house side of the boulders, whereas they didn't go into anything stream side of the boulders, if you will. But other than that, it was just a lot of undergrowth and down branches and some dead trees. Nothing really significant.
little bit of history. I think John Robinson probably pushed the boulders down there when he cleared that pasture where your house is.
Mm.
So that was probably 1950s.
And I guess just for educational purposes, brush and down trees and vegetation, particularly, bordering a wetland area. The reason why it's protected is because it provides really good habitat for, the birds and, other wildlife that, would use wetlands or streams, to kind of support. So, just a little, background on why that's protected and why that's important to us.
Understood.
I would suggest you set up a site visit. It seems like that's what some of the board members would like to do. Would that be appropriate?
That's good.
When do you want to shoot for?
You know which day my go-to is, Amy.
I could do it Friday again.
All right. Yeah.
Anna likes it
Fridays
too.
Fridays are bad, Julie?
No, well, I know
that's her.
it's not a great day for Amy.
Oh, days make no difference whatsoever.
Well, still.
Yeah, no, Friday's fine.
Okay.
Would that Friday afternoon, like around 2 or 3 or something, or do you want to do it later in the evening?
Yeah, 2 or 3 would be fine with me.
Maybe make it
I
a little later, 3 or something?
Sure.
Would that work for you, Harris?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
So Friday at 3.
Friday at 3?
And what's the address again?
It's 54 Bruce.
Just before you cross over the brook.
So the road's a little busy and a little narrow. We could probably all fit in the driveway, but then we don't have to back out, so. Figure it out. So we will see you all Friday at 3.
Sounds good.
We'll see you then.
I see we have a public hearing, notice of intent, Stony Brook Flow Restoration Project, Mass DEP file number 204-9XX, R24-15-0 and R24-16-0 drawdown for control of adequate invasion and management of Stony Brook stream flow. You know, where's that, Amy?
Mr. Hartel will talk to that. Corey just, you know, I might have seen above, Corey Godfrey turned out he cannot make it tonight.
Yes, I did see that. Thank you.
And Bob got thrown on the bus because somebody else couldn't make it tonight, so.
No, quite all right. Happy to be here, talk about this project. So I guess I'll kick it up by saying this is hopefully a pretty easy one. This is a continuation of a project that you'd heard about, I think, in the last 2 years. This project was originally funded in 2018 with the Mass DEP Water Management Act grant, and again in 2019. So it's been, the first phase of the project was to get some instrumentation in for real-time data to better understand the flow dynamics within Pond, Spectacle Pond, and Stony Brook. Last year in 2019 was a testing year where we were empirically testing, doing low flow releases and to see how the system would respond. And now that that's been successful, the goal is to get more permanent low flow releases authorized through this notice of intent. So there are really two parts to the project, so, in two different locations. And so the first is Spectacle Pond. So what we're looking to do there is to continue seasonal low flow releases, basically to improve in-stream flow for Stony Brook further on down in the system. The same is true for Forge Pond, seasonal low flow releases to maintain adequate in-stream habitat in Stony Brook. The second part of the project is specific to Spectacle Pond, and that would be to authorize seasonal winter lake pond level drawdown for control of invasive plants. So, as I mentioned before, this was a successful project doing empirical testing in 2019. Back when that testing was permitted, there was a MESA rare species filing to determine how that might impact the Blandings turtle habitat in the area, and there was a MESA no-take determination at the time, and the only requirement was that the low flow releases had to occur during the turtles' active season between April 16th and October 16th. So in terms of the timing that we're proposing for the low flow releases, it would be exactly the same in accordance with that no-take determination between April 16 and October 16. The mechanics for doing the low flow releases are a little bit different. As part of the project last year at Spectacle Pond, I don't know how familiar you are, if you recall the outlet structure at Spectacle Pond, but it was a series of these very large concrete stop logs, which made it difficult to have finesse with releasing water. So last year, part of the project was to install this new stop log with a 12-inch adjustable. You have a lot more ability to, adjust the flow rates and do it with some finesse. So that was installed, and we'd be using that to essentially guide the low flow releases. At Forge Pond, and I can show you some pictures of these structures later in case there's any confusion about that. At Forge Pond, there's a combination of these timber sluice gates that would come up to release water, and that would put water into a raceway that would then allow us to lift and release stop logs of various heights. We've got everything from 6-inch to 18-inch aluminum stop logs, some with perforations that allow low flows to continue through. So we've got that system pretty well down, having been doing drawdown in the winter for a number of years there. So low flow releases are pretty easy to do. So in terms of the sequence, the low flow releases would occur when the water level is low and the flow level is getting low in Stony Brook. But generally, what we're talking about is impacts on the actual pond water level that are very minor, really about 6 inches for both of the ponds. So the idea would be that you would start when you get this trigger of a low flow condition in the downstream area, and then you would stop at a preset water elevation, which when the water is approaching a level where it would start to have some impact on recreational use of the ponds. So those target numbers were sort of figured out prior to last year's testing, and we would stick with those same elevations. But suffice to say that 6-inch range that we're operating in is well within the normal fluctuation that you would get seasonally in the summer for both of those ponds. I mean, you get a decent rain event, it can easily jump up 6 inches. You get a bit of a dry spell, it can easily drop 6 inches. So we're really not operating outside of a normal range in terms of ecology or bordering plants or vegetation within the lake. So that's sorry.
I got a question. How is that going to be infected when they want to do the Lake Manawanaki drawdown to do the weed kill?
So the low level releases would only occur during the summer, and that whole process would be done. It wouldn't be happening anymore by the time the seasonal winter drawdown occurred.
And I have a follow-up question to Jim's question. And since it's been dry, it kind of has me thinking about, so if you're starting in drought conditions, would you change the release, or if it was really wet, how would that impact what you would plan to release?
Well, so I'll start with the second question. If it was really wet, you would assume that the downflow condition in Stony Brook would have adequate flow. In general, you're not going to see it. We've sort of figured out what that baseline low-level flow is, below which it would be harming in-stream aquatic habitat. So if we're getting a lot of rain, there's plenty of water going over the dams and flowing in the stream. It's really only during those lower precipitation periods that just because you have these dam structures preventing normal stream flow, that we want to get more of that water released. So this is a way, by having this instrumentation on the ponds and in the stream for a couple of years now, we understand the relationship between water level and flow in the stream. And what we've learned is that we can really avoid those low flow conditions that are harmful to habitat with just letting a little more water out a little more often. We probably reduce those low flow conditions by a little over 20% over the course of a season. So the idea is just to do it when we can and when it really doesn't cause any other problems. It's a totally discretionary activity. Nobody's forced to do it. We want to do it because it's helpful to habitat and it's possible to do.
Are you, so you're leaving it up to a person to monitor and manually adjust it? Or is it automated? Or maybe you already said it and I missed it.
No, I didn't say it, but it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. It's a little of both. So we've got in-stream and in-lake pressure transducers, which let us know at all times, really on a 5-second basis, what the water level is and what the flow rates are. So because we have that information, we also have alerts set up that will tell us, hey, the flow in Stony Brook is approaching this low-level threshold, and now might be the time to do a release. It'll also let us know when the water level is really high and it may be at risk of, scouring out the downstream on the high end. But this is more about focusing when we get those alerts. And, they'll pop up. There's a bunch of people, Corey Godfrey, myself, a bunch of other folks get these alerts. If you were interested in getting an alert, you could set it up so that you would know as well, or anyone in the commission for that matter. So that's the automated part of it. The manual part of it is the actual release. There's no automated physical controls on either of the ponds yet. That'd be a nice thing to think about maybe in phase 6 of this project, but we're not there yet.
What are the controls on the dam structures?
So at Spectacle Pond, it's the brand new adjustable 12-inch valve that's been inserted into one of the concrete stop logs, where before you had to pull out this gigantic stop log and it would all release. Now you can adjust that valve.
Okay. So
at Forge Pond, we've got a little more finesse because we can pull up these sluice gates, and that lets a certain amount of water out. And then we've got this series of different aluminum stop logs that we can pull out and replace to adjust the flow.
And that's all relative. Sounds like new equipment. My concern would be you try to lower these things and then we have issues closing them.
No, they're all. I mean, it's brand new at Spectacle Pond. That's like brand new sort of state-of-the-art valve. And I would think it was 1988 when this secondary outlet was built or rebuilt at Forge Pond. So it's fairly modern in terms of these things. It's not like it's some industrial revolution era, crank gate that's rusty. They're nice fabricated aluminum stop logs. And, depending if the water level is really high, sometimes that pressure, the head on top of it can make it a little tough to pull out. But in the summer, it's no problem at all. It's very easy.
Who owns the dams?
So Littleton Electric Light and Water owns the dam at Spec Pond, and at Forge Pond, it's actually the Yule Corporation, which is the company that owns the Abbott Mill building in Westford. Okay. The condos that were built there. It used to be an old woolen mill, but now it's condos. So Chris Yule, who's the owner, he actually owns that dam structure, but he's signed off as a project partner.
Mm-hmm. It's quite the acquisition.
Yeah. He has made it clear to us, probably worth talking about, that he just wants to make sure that nothing about this project in any way interferes with his property or his operation, which is understandable. But he's been a good partner so far and has been very agreeable to all of this. So so far, so good.
Okay.
So I guess if there's no more questions about that, I'll describe the drawdown part of it for Spectacle Pond. So this is to do winter water level drawdown, similar to what's done at Forge Pond. The major difference is that they're only able to go down about 2 vertical feet. So that's less than half of what's authorized for Forge Pond. So 2 main goals there. They've got is control of 3 non-native species, curly leaf pondweed, fanwort, and variable milfoil. And the second co-benefit is by taking the water level down in the winter, it will take the edge off flooding, which has historically been a problem around some of the nearshore areas during that late winter and early spring snowmelt, and when we tend to get more rains and higher water table. So this would just allow a little flood resiliency there, a little more storage during that drawdown period.
Hey, Bob,
You disappeared.
Yeah.
are you trying to show us something? Because you're just blank.
I don't know what happened there.
Something in front of your camera. There you
That
go.
was a piece of paper blocking my
Okay.
the fun of being on Zoom, I guess. So everything else about the drawdowns being done, the timing is all in keeping with Mass DEP guidelines on drawdown, the number of inches per day, 3 inches per day of dropping. The rate of flow is all in keeping with the DEP guidelines. Refill by April 1st in keeping with the Mass DEP guidelines. The only slight variation here is one that would allow for coordination of the drawdown between Spectacle Pond and Forge Pond. So what is being asked is that the drawdown, the actual dropping of the water level, that 2 feet, would be completed by October 15th, which would then allow Forge Pond to drop its water level, which is required to start on October 15th in most years. And those dates are fairly flexible at the state level. They're guideline dates, and there's often reasons why one might start a little earlier and a little later. And this is exactly the kind of reason when you've got a coordinated drawdown. It's been a problem in the past when Spectacle Pond for years has been doing drawdown without a permit. So this is a good thing. They're actually doing it on board now and on the books. But in the past, Forge Pond has been drawing down its water and then gets a surprise when Spectacle Pond all of a sudden release water, and why is the water level jumping up? So this allows it to be done with communication and coordination between the 2 lakes. So that's the reason for the timing request to happen by October. Other than that, as I mentioned, because they've been doing drawdown for years, they've had no issue with wells, private or public wells, going down a maximum of 2 feet. You really wouldn't expect that to cause much of a problem, but there is a hotline that's going to be established with Littleton Electric Light and Water being the point of contact if anyone needs to, call someone because they're having trouble with their private well. We've already had review and response from Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. They gave the project a thumbs up, no adverse impacts to fisheries or wildlife. We are still pending our review letter from MISA. we were told verbally today that they expect to issue a letter that's nearly identical to the no-take letter that they issued last year in 2019. But it's going to be another week to 10 days before they have that letter issued. So I guess what we are hoping you guys might entertain the idea of, if you're willing to close this hearing tonight, with the condition that you get successful receipt of that MISA review letter, and it is similar no-take letter approving the project. So and the reason for that, sorry?
I'm going to have to take back what we had talked about earlier because you don't have a DEP file number yet.
Okay.
Well, the commission can't close.
That I thought we did have, and I think this is one of the downside of coming into the hearing a little bit late unexpected.
Yeah, I haven't seen one.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that we've got both ends of that paperwork taken care of if you need to continue it, obviously. Contractually, the grant has to be closed out by the end of the month, so we'll make sure we've got everything ready to go for whenever you guys meet next.
I mean, couldn't we approve it?
June 15th.
Couldn't we approve it and then he wouldn't have to come in the next meeting and just say that whenever he gets that letter, it will be the final input?
You just can't actually close. You could kind of informally say you have no further questions or need any more information tonight, and that's all things being equal. If it's just waiting for a DEP file number and a natural heritage letter,
right? And so when we get the letter
the 15th, without anybody coming in,
yeah, we could close it without you there, Bob. If you don't need to come in next time.
That would be great. So happy to take any questions, but that's sort of the quick overview of both parts.
Would that be the consensus of the board to go along with that idea?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Kyle?
I'm good.
Okay, if everybody's more or less in agreement, I think that's probably a fair thing to do.
right?
Okay, well, thank you. Do appreciate that. I know it's a little bit unusual protocol, but certainly appreciate it.
It always is.
Looks like the next discussion item is enforcement order Durkee. I guess that's,
Yeah.
Mass DEP file number 204-772.
Yeah, for the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. Thank you. Good evening. So we're here this evening as a continuation of the enforcement order that's been placed on us out at Durkee Farm Estates and K Estates. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we went on a site walk. I believe it was Friday, not last Friday, Friday before. And we walked the entire site. We started up at Douglas at the cul-de-sac, walked around the basin that's up there, looked at the proposed location of the swale to convey off-site water. We went down Red Cedar onto Spruce Street, took a look at basin number 5 and the swales that were associated with that, and kind of discussed the reconstruction activities in that area, and then walked up behind lots 18, 19, and I believe 49, and inspected erosion controls on phase 4 to look at different areas that had been spruced up. There was no punch list items at that point in time. I was continuing to do what Chris and Dave and Mike have been doing out there, street sweep, maintain silt sacks, keep the erosion controls in good condition, and basically when weather allows, which we're coming up on quite quickly, begin the reconstruction activities for the basin up at the end of Balsam, or excuse me, at the end of Douglas, as well as basin 5 on Spruce Street, and we anticipate both of those to be done this season. So I guess I'm here to answer any questions the commission might have, any sort of updates, things like that. But the ultimate goal would be hopefully to lift the EO and get approval to install the pipe. We did issue a sketch on that some time ago, now, and we had walked the site with that. So, you know, with that said, I'm here and I'm happy to answer questions.
Anybody got any questions?
So I went on the site walk. You know, I thought the measures for erosion control and hydro seeding, it was clear they were, taking that seriously and keeping up with that. I think and then the pipe as well, after reviewing the drawings and looking again at the site, I feel comfortable with the plans for the pipe. It's been pretty dry, so I feel as though before they proceed with building houses on the cul-de-sac at Douglas, that the, pretty severely gullied downslope of the retaining wall and upslope of the basin. There's a lot of silt getting into that basin. We get a good rainstorm, you're going to wash out more material, and I think it has been dry. And so I would want to see, I would want to see that reconstructed prior to doing a whole bunch of construction on that cul-de-sac for houses. I feel as though stabilizing that area is important, and I don't view a slope with that severe rilling and gullying as stable if we get, a thunderstorm. But other than that, I was satisfied with, the plans for cell 1 and, in that area, and I thought they were taking the stabilizing the individual yards. They were taking that seriously.
I'm wondering one thing, the sidewalk a couple weeks ago, you mentioned that there was going to be some surveying done in that last area we visited with the basin at the very end of the slope, this pipe, and then slope, and then the basin. I'm not sure what number it is. But
Yep, so that's basin 300. And what you saw in the field were stakes that were survey located. So that was location of the contours of the basin, if you will. So that's the starting point to construct it. So the next step down at that end of Douglas is to actually construct the stormwater management system, prior to putting binder down. So that survey work was done, and now it's putting the earth around to form the basin.
okay.
Anybody else got any comments?
One other thing I forgot to mention that I noticed on the site walk was the stormwater catch basins in the bridge, the crossing area. Those silt sacks were really, really full. So, please keep up with inspections and changing those out.
Absolutely.
All right. Anybody else? Or I'll make a motion.
Yeah, Brian, real quick. So you're saying that it's coming and it's coming and it's coming. Is there any sort of schedule? I mean, now that it has been dry for at least a couple weeks here, that reconstruction activity will take place?
I would expect this month.
It's okay.
Amy, what's your recommendation?
Pretty good. It's June 1st, so it gives yourself the entire month. Well, so I'm hearing that the commission is fine with the proposed new pipe to take care of the drainage from offsite. So I guess really the question is, do you want to keep the enforcement order while they do some of that major work on the pipe and stabilizing that basin, or lift it now? And or when would you want me to sign off on building permits? They have
Anybody?
They'll need a building permit for the pipe work?
No, for the 2 houses they have left, which is they probably want to start right away. The other one I think is a little bit further down the road, but the proposed pipe is basically right next to the house that they want to build next.
So they've kind of got to put the pipe in before they build the house?
If I may, it's probably concurrent. So as they have equipment on site to put the house up, upgrade the yard, install the septic system, they're putting that pipe in at the same time. And that's when final detail grading, loaming, seeding, reconstruction, stabilization of slopes, everything will take place. It'll all be kind of concurrently while the equipment's there.
I don't know. I'm feeling like if that much work has to be done before the pipe is finalized, that we should wait to lift it. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I'm with Anna. I think that's quite outstanding.
If it doesn't hold the project up and they can, get what they need, I say we keep the enforcement order on.
Yeah, so I mean, that we're allowing them to do additional work though, but keeping the enforcement order in place. I mean, there's still certain work that they won't be able to do. What was the intent of the enforcement order? If we're just going to say, yeah, you're going to keep the enforcement order, but you have to do more work. Like, what? How is it an enforcement order if we're saying do more work?
Andrew?
So
The other thing the enforcement order would impact is building that base. Is it basin 300 at the end of Douglas?
Yeah. So we would obviously want to be able to build that basin. I mean, everything that we're doing on site or want permission to do on site is leading towards stabilization. It's fixing all of the issues that were out there, which is clear by the work done to date. With all the yards and hydro seeding and whatnot, we want to be able to get into a position to stabilize the entirety of the project, especially now because it is not raining. It's rather dry. Now is the time to do that work in preparation for the fall.
So the only thing that the enforcement order is actually holding up would be the basin. No other work? Like, the houses, okay.
But the building permits also, my feeling is until the basin is reconstructed, which is supposed to happen imminently, that attention needs to go to that before houses are constructed, is my opinion on that. If the enforcement order is holding up the pipe, I guess that's not something I'm completely clear on, because I know the pipe was submitted as as part of a solution. Amy, is the enforcement order holding up the pipe construction?
I don't think the enforcement order is holding that up. Brian, just wanted to make sure that you approved.
We just need to approve it.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed. And again, I want to reiterate that the pipe in lot 36 in the basin at the end of Douglas, all that work is going to be done currently because the equipment is on site. If the commission really wants to hold the enforcement order in place, can we limit it to 35, which hasn't been? Equipment's not really on that side of the basin. Everything can get access from the opposite side. And then with respect to the other basin at the end of Douglas, we would respectfully ask to be able to complete that work, to get that online in preparation for roadway pavement. The road's been brought up to subgrade. Catch basins are installed, but obviously they've been plated over because there's no pavement. But again, all of these things are leading towards that final stabilization of the site. These guys really have a window of good weather, obviously, right now, and we need to be able to take advantage of that, so that this isn't something that we're talking about in the fall, because we've had all the time today, this week, this month, to be able to complete the work.
Sounds like kind of a catch-22. If you don't let them do it, we get a bunch of rain, which could happen with this New England weather. I think we got to come to some sort of a conclusion here.
Yeah, well, we want the work done. We want that basin, especially the slope leading into the basin. We know we've already had siltation making its way down the spillway. So I would like for them to be able to move ahead with, reconstructing that area, constructing the pipe to deal with the drainage, and then the houses come next. So perhaps it's a matter of lifting the enforcement, allowing them to do that site work, And then an inspection of that site work needs to happen before Amy can sign off on a building permit for a house.
I agree. I think I agree. I would be okay lifting the enforcement order with the stipulation that once you bring equipment to the site, it's not to start foundation work or clearing work. It's to go straight to the basin, stabilize the basin, and kind of work your way backwards so that area stabilized before you start disturbing more of that area.
So again, this goes to the design of that specific lot. That foundation's holding back the slope. It's a retaining wall. It's a walkout. So the foundation's part of this grading. It's part of getting everything to where it needs to be. So to circle back to kind of my point, the pipe, the basin, lot 36 is its own animal. 35 is something that's separate. As we go to the other side of Douglas, those are different as well, where lots 47 through 49, which are in the buffer zone, the houses are, I think only 49 is, but the stormwater management is, again, it's kind of separate from those house lots. So it's really, it's going to be one specific area, the area that's kind of being focused on a lot for good reason to be reconstructed. All that work has to be done at the same time. The foundation has to go in, the pipe has to go in, the yards have to get graded, the basin has to get reconstructed. And I'm happy to, and I know Chris will be happy to work with Amy on timing of sidewalks and inspections and things like that to get it done. So I would just ask that if the commission feels that the EO should remain in place, that it be such that it's more the lot 35, lot 47, 48, 49, the three that are in the buffer at the end of Douglas, and not relating to stormwater management or grading, house lot grading that's immediately impacting that stormwater management.
Brian, did you say you're using a house foundation as a retaining wall?
So it's a walkout. Any house walkout is a retaining wall because it's a basement.
For stormwater purposes, for the cul-de-sac?
You can't do that.
Okay, that was my concern. That's what it sounded like. Okay.
No, not at all.
So
it's very integral to the grading in that area.
Understood. It seems like it's not a requirement, though. I mean, I understand it would be convenient, but I mean, you can't grade it. I'm having a hard time understanding why it's necessary for this.
So if the concern the commission has is with respect to kind of oversight of that specific area, you have right to sign off on any certificate of occupancy as well. So it's not just a building permit. The building permit is a linchpin to the site work in that area for this specific lot, but you always have to sign off on an occupancy permit to make sure that this entire area is up to the commission's satisfaction and it's performing properly. So I don't think enforcement is a tool that necessarily needs to be in place.
Amy, is there any chance that they could be allowed to put the foundation in but not do the construction of the home just because it seems to be all tied together with the grading?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, Brian. Is a foundation permit a separate permit? I usually see them all at once.
Yeah, they are, but I mean they can be separate. You can phase the building permit.
So we could do that.
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me about the certificate of occupancy is that could be 6 months down the road.
Next year.
Well, yeah. So I would be okay with, I'm not trying to create a hardship, but I'm trying to create some, I would like some reasonable, accountability with the situation and some, kind of clear boundaries. That's my opinion on it. So if the foundation can be separated, and because what I'm hearing is it's integral to the grading in this area and allowing the stormwater. I mean, my interest is getting the stormwater buttoned up and in a condition so we don't have silt heading down the spillway. We already know it's, kind of fingered out underneath already. And we haven't had intense storms, so I have no interest in holding up the stormwater reconstruction and improving the stormwater on the site. So if it's possible to separate the foundation from everything else, I'm okay with that. But I think all the resources need to go to correcting this issue before resources go to building houses.
Anybody else?
So I would recommend leaving the enforcement order in place because it's going to be easier for me to talk to the building inspector if there's an enforcement order on there. But if it sounds, I can't remember. Do you have a building permit application in for lot 36, don't you?
I don't actually know what permit.
I think that's what triggered all this. Yeah.
So can we approve the pipe with the enforcement order still in place?
Yes. It's basically part of the restoration of the site, so it's part of
So you mean, have we decided then to let the pipe be installed and have them move forward with the foundation under the enforcement order? Is that what we've come to?
And restoring the storm water basin and that slope that's really gullied out.
Basin 300 or whatever, Douglas, at the end of Douglas?
that's a different one, but yeah, and build that basin.
I think it's all got to go hand in hand the way it sounds.
All right.
Kyle, you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Do we
Matt?
have to have a formal vote?
I would think so. With those conditions that we allow that activity to take place.
So that's site work and foundations.
And just the foundation and not the house. I mean, that until everything's stable. That would be my opinion.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, then we need to make a motion then. Make a motion to amend the enforcement order to allow the construction of the pipe and the construction of the foundation exclusively.
And the two basins.
And the two basins.
And appropriate grading.
And appropriate grading. So that's the motion. Any second?
Second.
Which lot is the foundation going on?
Yeah, the foundation was part of it.
Right. No, I know, but it was just one of the lots, right? Was that lot 36?
Lot 36.
Oh,
I just wanted to clarify that in the motion. Okay.
okay, thanks.
I'm happy now.
All right. All those in favor?
Roll call, please. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Andrew,
Andrew, I.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Anna,
Anna Mayor, aye.
Jim,
James Pickett, aye.
and Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
That's the order of my screen.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm not. Dave's here as well.
I saw him.
Yeah. Okay, I guess have we taken care of all that discussion for now?
Yep, so we're on to Workers' Credit Union.
Mass PD 204-862. The Workers' Credit Union, what have you got for an update on?
Sorry. Hi, guys. David Cowell, Hancock Associates on behalf of the applicant Workers' Credit Union. Recently, they've begun execution of the restoration plan that we had mandated under the order of conditions. To date, they've executed all of the restoration scope on the 119 Russell Street side of the property around the building itself. They have yet to get into the I-495 side on the opposite side. That's pending. I think Nauset and Fenton, the primary contractor and the subcontractor, are working out who's going to execute that work. But I've provided an update on the restoration on the 119 Littleton Russell Street side of things. I was out there through all facets working with Fenton. They went in there, they stripped the sod off of those slopes to remove the turf lawn that was out there. They installed, I think, 800 not aquatic, but emergent wetland species of plants along the shoreline in execution of the shoreline stabilization. They hydroseeded the shoreline with the New England wetland plant mix per specification. They had removed the invasive species within the restoration area prior to planting. And then they executed the native nursery stock shrub plantings. I helped them with the layout to get all of the plants set up. I submitted to you guys a monitoring report. It's a baseline monitoring report detailing everything that they've executed to date. And I wanted to provide update to you guys this evening and see if you guys had any questions or comments for us regarding the progress.
And just to kind of summarize exactly what the reason why we're here, we've been asked to come to give a project update. Obviously, the 495 piece has not been completed yet. It will be completed this season, so they're efforting that right now. They have permits from DOT to be able to access it from the 495 side. So I think, as Dave alluded to, there's just some internal kind of coordination on how it's going to get done. Our goal this evening is to get some sort of occupancy sign off, or have the commission allow Amy to sign off on occupancy. This is the last piece for workers to get into the building. Construction's done, parking lot's paved. As Dave in the report indicated, the vast majority of the site has been completed with restoration activities. There is some punch list items remaining. Obviously, there's an active order of conditions. There's monitoring that's associated with this project, so we're not going anywhere, but Workers is very eager to get into their new building. So hopefully the commission can see fit to help facilitate that this evening.
Hey, Brian, have they taken any of the trees down along Route 495?
No comment.
On the opposite side, I don't think so. Dave, when was the last time you were out there?
Oh, I was out there 2 weeks ago. Carl, no, there's, we only agreed to, I think it was a total of 5 or 6 species that are specifically outlined on the plan. I held a site walk with Fenton and Nauset to identify which of those trees are, but I instructed them that they're not to touch anything until I hold a kickoff meeting with them when they get to that side. One of the issues on the opposite side is the density of invasive species. They had asked me, Nauset had asked me to go over there and identify the native species for removal, and they thought that they would send 2 or 3 guys over there with hand tools to take out the invasive species. But the understory is really like a dense impenetrable layer that's 95% invasive species. It's all honeysuckle, glossy buckthorn, and Asiatic bittersweet. So what I ended up doing was actually flagging the native species to remain, and instructed them that when you get in here, I'm going to flag the stuff to keep and not to touch that. But the scope of work was beyond them just getting in there with hand tools. So they were actually coordinating with Fenton landscape contractors to possibly execute that scope of work for them. And they're going to need more mechanical means to get in there and clear out the invasive species. So that's where it stands right now, but they haven't touched anything on that side. And they won't be able to access the trees for removal until they've thinned some of that understory invasive species to even access those trees. So,
Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome, Carl.
It's getting very dry now, and I
Yes.
guess I'm worried with if the planting is delayed much more, it's going to take a lot of work to make sure that they survive.
Yeah, Anna, that's a great point. Well, one of the considerations on the opposite side is that the planting plan, these are very xeric upland soil type species. It's very bony in there. So I think, without the plan in front of me, based off of recollection, I believe I'd specified species like hophorn beam, hazelnut, whether or not it was American hazelnut or beaked hazelnut. These are all very dry soil type species. That said, even xeric soil type species, require a little bit of water. I'm less concerned with a summer planting of those species than I would be with restoration plantings that really do need to have that hydro period and have the water to support them.
Right. Yeah, and the planting of trees often is done incorrectly. So it would be good if you were definitely on site for the planting of trees.
Yep.
They often are planted too deep or too high for that transition point to the roots. And
yep. No, that's a common observation that I make on sites is they either don't dig the hole deep enough and they have 3 inches of daylight, which exacerbates the stress on the plant from recovery, or they bury them too deep. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Fenton appeared, just based on observations of their work on the 119 Fenton, Russell Street side, really did an outstanding job. Any of you guys are welcome to come by and walk the shoreline of 119 Littleton and look at some of the plants they put in. And I think I characterized some of that in the photographs that I provided in my report. But just based on preliminary observations with Fenton, they've gained confidence in the sense that they know what they're doing, and they're providing a professional product out there.
So I'm looking at the photos. Oh, where is it? May 21st. It looks like I'm looking at the photo of the hydro seed, the transition zone with New England Conservation Wildlife Mix.
Yep.
So that's May 20. I don't know if I can
Oh, sorry.
Show you guys this. So I'm wondering, it's been a couple of weeks. How's the hydro seed doing? Is it taking?
Well, we haven't seen germination yet. I haven't been out there. I would anticipate that it wouldn't have popped yet. It usually takes about a month. It's not a very fast emerging plant mix, but certainly worth watching. I know Amy had made the comment about possibly top dressing it with an erosion control blanket. There's biodegradable products out there. Amy, all you have to do is say the word that it's mandated, and I can press these guys to get it done. When it's just a suggestion, they'll shrug it off. But I think that biodegradable blankets, it aids in seed germination, and especially entering a drier period, it also aids in retaining soil moisture, which helps the seed germinate.
Has there been watering?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Were you both asking the same question? So
yeah.
They've been irrigating it?
Yeah.
No, not to my knowledge. Of course, when they were setting the seed, it was still during a rain period a few weeks ago. But we've obviously gotten into a dry spell the last few weeks, where it has been quite dry. So that's certainly a question. I don't know what water access they have back there, but that is a consideration to irrigate it a bit.
Yeah, because seeds really need almost every other day water.
I guess my thought is, one of the basis for the waiver, was the planting plan, and reading through the monitoring report, it's clear that I saw 75 plugs were designated to be planted, but they came in flats of 100, so they planted 100, which I think is a good thing. But I also feel as though we have a responsibility to ensure, especially if we're going to grant occupancy prior to a portion of the restoration that we agreed to, which I'm willing to consider. But I guess I feel like a site walk is in order, and perhaps some measures to ensure what has been planted will be successful, given that it's
so it's typical, and I without having your order of conditions in front of me, what's typical is to have a restoration monitoring period for up to 2 years following installation, where we submit monitoring reports prior to issuance of a full certificate of compliance. That said, I wouldn't expect that we'd wait for grass to grow to get an occupancy permit.
I agree. I just want to see how it's doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, you guys are, I'd be happy to entertain you guys on a walk out there and walk you through it.
Yep.
But I don't think that there's not much more to see than what's already in the photographs, but you can get an on the ground perspective of what's going out there. I can walk you guys through it.
Those photos are going to be almost 2 weeks old in a couple of days, right? And like they said, it's been pretty dry. So I hope that there's not much else to see, but I feel like there could be if things weren't taken care of.
I think for a temporary measure, I think you ought to at least think about putting a sprinkler system on it. Just to get it going.
What do you mean a sprinkler? Obviously not in-ground irrigation. Just put sprinklers out there on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it stays dry like it is, because nothing is.
Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah. I could ask the contractors the potential for that. It's a lot of surface area to put lawn sprinklers out.
Amy, what's your recommendation?
Brian, what is their preferred timeline, put it that way, for the CO?
Tomorrow. So we didn't really anticipate having commission sign off prior to a TCO on this, given the scope of the work, the fact that there is going to be 3 years of monitoring that's associated with this. This was a restoration activity of a previously disturbed, fully altered site. We had discussed phasing of restoration activities to be broken up during the permitting process and actually separating the work around the building proper on the 495 side, kind of regardless. Certainly we would love to have the commission out and kind of walk around and see the progress to date. However, I really don't want to have workers have to sit another 2 weeks without occupying their new building. Strictly for kind of an update on what's going out on site. Again, the commission has the order of conditions. It's very specific that the vegetation has to take with a threshold of viable species. The work has to be done according to the plan, which to date has been. I believe the contractor was working, hand in hand. Amy, you came out prior to doing any work. We did our pre-construction. I believe you came out a couple other times. Certainly, any time that commissioners would like to come out to see the work, feel free. However, we're kind of down to the wire with the COVID. The fact that they're shifting their corporate office from Fitchburg to the town of Littleton. All their IT infrastructure is in place, and it's not quite the same as flipping a switch. They're eager to get in the building. So what we would ask is that if in the interim, while we're scheduling the sidewalk, if we could get that TCO. I wasn't a part of the original discussion, Amy, that you had with Nauset. I just saw kind of like some cursory emails where there was obviously the certificate of compliance is not going to be issued prior to occupying the building, but all the level of enforcement that goes along with that is still going to be held. So I guess what I'm asking is for the commission to sign off on the CO based on the good faith effort of the work done to date, and we will certainly address any concerns based on the site walk that we have, temporary irrigation, any other measures that the commission feels would be beneficial to the resource area, all with the caveat that at the end of the day, we have that monitoring. The vegetation has to survive for the certificate of compliance. The work has to be completed. So those measures, those enforcement mechanisms are in place regardless.
Amy, do we have any sort of schedule for inspections or reporting back to us on like status updates on the site?
I can't remember if the order of conditions had an actual schedule that, the monitoring reports, the seasonal monitoring reports has to be submitted by, I don't know, October 1st. I'm not sure if there's an actual date,
something,
but they are required.
I mean, the way that
3 years.
Pretty comfortable with how Fenton has started this work. I mean, I agree. If we have I know we have 3 years of monitoring plugged in, and as long as there's routine monitoring going on and David's working with them hand in hand, I mean, maybe is it something where since the work is still ongoing, we can request more frequent updates from at least David, come in and say, hey, we started this work. This is where we're at now.
Yeah. So one of the things that gave me pause was in the monitoring report. I'm trying to find the sentence now. It just said that they would check back in the late summer, early fall. So I felt like, given that it's dry and there's still seedlings, I felt like that was a little too long. But perhaps we can, I'm not interested in, setting, COVID has been really challenging for any business entities. So I'm certainly not interested in setting them back for no reason.
Yep.
But I do think, we need a site visit fairly imminently or perhaps we just say implement irrigation, implement some biodegradable mats to give, these plantings, a chance to survive. It's so dry. I have new seedlings in my garden and, they need watering really frequently. And it's frankly a waste of money, that it's a waste.
You're absolutely right, Julie. That's a good point.
Plant seedlings. So, I'm willing to, I guess back off of my original position, in the face of the challenges surrounding COVID and the fact that we do have monitoring. And, I think, Dave, you do, you work in good faith to, make restoration successful. So,
yep. Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. I'm probably, I don't want to say I'm more vested than Workers Credit Union is, but when I designed, this is actually the gratifying work for me as a conservation professional is designing these things and seeing them come to execution is probably the most gratifying work that I do. And I want to ensure their success as well. I want to see emergent grass to meet a performance standard of no less than 80% uniform vegetative cover before, considering it final stabilized. So when they apply a seed mix, especially if it's late season or if there's risk of it washing away, it's not specified in the plan. There's the complication of telling a contractor that now we want blankets because it constitutes a change order and they go through contractual who's paying for it. But to put it in context of it basically being an insurance that if you don't meet the performance standards, you guys are going to come back here. You guys are going to reseed this at additional cost.
Cost you more.
Yeah.
Buy it all over again.
But I'm vested in the success of this. I mean, this is really what I enjoy out of my profession. And I do think that there is opportunity for additional interim monitoring prior to what's fairly standard or what I recommend to commissions in a 2 or 3 year monitoring program is reports twice a year, once early spring or late spring, early summer, one late May, early June, and then another one late season, either late August, early September. Typically, when you're monitoring twice a year, you're looking for encroachment by invasive species. It offers you opportunity to appraise what's coming in and sort of nip that in the butt to remove additional invasive species and ensure the vitality of the nursery stock plantings that you put in. Given the context that there's still the I-495 work pending, once that begins to come to fruition, I anticipate we're also going to have another kickoff meeting for that. I'll certainly coordinate with Amy and invite you guys if you guys have any comments prior to kickoff on that side. But we could certainly perform some interim monitoring of the Russell Street side, just to monitor it for germination of the seed mix and monitor it for any encroachment by invasive species or any stress indicators exhibited by the plantings. So that's
I think a good start would be probably to try and get some water on the seedlings and help them survive. It's hypothetically, Farmers Almanac says we're going to have a real dry summer. So for whatever it's worth, it seems like if you should at least attempt to do something along that line so it gets stabilized.
Yep. I'll touch base with the contractors and see what we have for water resources out there and see whether or not it's putting sprinkler heads out there or having somebody just walk along it with a hose and give it a good
Manually hose it, yeah.
every day or two.
And mats. I think the mats would really help things stay in place so we don't have, bare hillside and then down. I mean, I realize it's
That's just it. Yeah, you run the risk of the seed not germinating and the potential for especially with summer rain events are typically fast flashing heavy rain events, and it could potentially wash seed off the slopes. So, yep, no, they're valid critiques. Yep.
So do you want to require the biodegradable mats?
So my recommendation on that would be, let's go out and visit the site. I think the commission had quite a bit of interest. Let's go out there. Let's see what tomorrow's conditions are going to be whenever we can schedule it, and then we'll discuss whatever specific localized additional measures need to be taken in the interim. Just like Dave said, we'll reach out to the contractor. We'll make sure that they have ample water supply. I mean, the site is irrigated. I don't know if it's fully irrigated or if it's selectively irrigated. I haven't seen that final plan, but I know it's in place. So we might be talking about something that is a non-issue. So let's get our hands on that around that while we schedule a site walk.
Personally, I don't have a problem with letting them occupy the building as long as they take some measures to try and make the seedings a success. That's my opinion. Anybody else got an opinion?
Okay, we have to take a vote, right?
Yeah, might be a good idea. We've got another very special session coming up, executive session we need to deal with.
I think the library's sneaking in too.
Yeah, we have the library too.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so are we looking for a motion to approve the occupancy permit?
Sure.
So moved. I move that we issue an occupancy permit pending a site visit, which I guess we should probably be scheduling at this point, right?
Wait, so the occupancy permit before the walk?
No, I guess it sounds like we're okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should step back. I'm okay issuing the occupancy permit based on what we have in place for monitoring periods based on the reports that Dave has given back to us already. So I'm making a motion to issue the occupancy permit.
Okay, I'll second that.
Guess we need a roll call vote to approve.
Yep.
Yep.
James Pickett, yay.
Carl?
Carl Milberg, yay.
Andrew?
Andrew Smarco, yay.
Julie?
Julie Rupp, yay.
Anna?
Anna Mayer, yay.
And Kyle?
Kyle Baxfield, yay.
Did I skip someone? I guess not.
Thank you.
Okay.
So should we do the site walk on Friday after the other one at like 3:30?
Yep, that works for me.
3:30?
That's this coming Friday?
Correct.
3:30 p.m.?
We're doing the other one at 3.
Oh, okay, yeah. So 3:30, that works for me. I don't have any conflicts.
You need that work?
3:30, 3:45, somewhere in that.
Yeah.
You'll be the second stop.
Yeah, whenever you get over there. After, yeah, gotcha. Right. I'll get out there at 3:30 and hang tight until you guys roll in. No worries.
We want to see you there watering the plants.
Yeah.
I'll be out there with a green
Bring your
plastic
watering
watering can.
Your watering can, great. Yeah.
Everyone bring a watering can.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Here.
Okay, I would guess, thank you. I would guess procedurally, we have to adjourn this meeting and open the executive session. Would that be the correct?
We have the, I think you might have missed that part of the
No,
meeting.
he wasn't, yeah.
Library is in to discuss a project change that they might need to do, or they do need to do. And then we can do the executive session.
Okay,
Good evening.
that's for the library.
Sorry,
Yes.
this is Chris Garcia with Garcia Gillespie de Souza with Consulting Engineers on the project. So as Amy mentioned, we'd like to review 2 revisions
of the approved plans of the recent order of conditions. We believe they're minor, but we're asking the commission for their opinion on whether an amended order would be required. One of the changes, I'm not sure if I can share my screen or not, if we can see that.
There you go.
This is just the colored version that I think the commission is familiar with. So one of the changes in terms of in our review with the planning board and the deputy fire chief, if you remember, this access road in the rear of the building was going to be 18 feet wide. The fire chief had asked and requested that we make that 20 feet wide. So we've increased the gravel road to the east, away from the wetland. We held the line in this area. So that increased to 20 feet wide. And then in addition, he requested in this area, this was the original boundary, or the outside boundary of the gravel road. He had asked that we maintain that limit just to give the fire department a little more maneuverability in that turn. So the red line is the line that we had shown on the original order. We have increased this gravel area, which is the existing condition now at the site. So that is the limit of the road. We're not encroaching any further towards the wetland in that area. The second revision is in this outfall area. We had discussed with the board reconstructing or constructing a stone spillway at the end of the existing stormwater discharge pipe. Through the review for the drainage, they had requested, or Green International had brought it up, that because we're doing work here, to simply replace the old RCP pipe with a new pipe. So that would be the second basic revision that we put on the plans. So those plans had been revised and approved by the planning board previously, but obviously this is a change to the order, or revisions to the plans that are under the order.
Sorry, I originally thought I thought you were going to replace that pipe. Is that really a change? Replacing that pipe?
We had shown a portion of it, a new manhole being constructed over the existing pipe. I don't know if I could bring up, this is the May 1st amended set of drawings. I'll try to quickly. So as part of the plans written in the order, there was going to be a new drainage manhole. Everything to the east was new pipe, and we were planning on leaving this existing section here. So as part of the review with Green, we decided that just to simply replace it all would be a better condition. So we're showing this section of pipe as being new now.
So that requires excavation where you weren't going to excavate?
Yes, it does. In this location, we were going to do work here in constructing a splash pool where the existing discharge point was. So now we've revised that to replace the pipe as well.
Does that mean any change in stockpiling soil or anything like that, or is it generally the same?
I mean, I don't think it's a large impact. That's a short piece of pipe. It would, be a day of work. It wouldn't be an open trench for a long period of time or anything like that. We already had the erosion control measures in this area anyway, so I didn't see that as a large impact on the construction.
And it's the same diameter pipe?
Yes.
So there'll be no impact on the water that's making its way to the wetland?
No, these changes, the stormwater calculations had been revised and reviewed. There's no increase in that runoff. Obviously, that work would want to be done during a dry period of time, but there's no increase.
And the pipe size is remaining the same.
Yes.
What kind of pipe is it?
It would be the same RCP pipe that was there originally.
I suppose you don't know whether that's collapsed or anything either, I suppose, or filled up with silt. At this point, it's just makes a lot of sense just to redo it while you got doing the road.
I think it does. I think it does.
And it will be emerging at the same point as it is now.
Yes, yes. Same exact discharge point. There now, under the current condition, there's no stone spillway or anything like that. So we think we're going to improve the situation by installing this splash pool with the stone to reduce the velocity of that coming out.
Is there anything else changing?
No, that would be the changes that have been made since.
Is there a trash rack or anything on the new pipe?
We didn't have one planned. We didn't have one adding in. I mean, we can certainly add one in. It wasn't necessarily requested when Green did their review, but that certainly can be added.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Well, it's draining from the parking lot above, right, in the entranceway.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So we have the deep sump catch basins, the separators, part of the drainage that would take the solids out, but can prevent anything large getting into the end of the pipe at that end of the discharge point.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably not necessary.
My only concern would be what Anna had mentioned. I mean, it's easy to say that would be a day's worth of work, but I've seen plenty of construction that all of a sudden it turns into a week-long process, and we have a stockpile of soil within the 50-foot buffer that's been hanging out. I don't know if there's any sort of a soil management plan written up for the rest of the work, but hopefully maybe something gets called out where anything that's stockpiled needs to be well maintained or surrounded with erosion controls itself. Just because there's erosion controls in place, I don't know, I'm still not comfortable having soil stockpiled inside the 50-foot buffer for an extended period of time.
No, understood. And if there are any stockpiles, they'd have protection around them. That's built into the documents.
Okay.
We had originally planned to have this new drain line installed as well. That's within the buffer. So there is a management plan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there is a management plan in place for that.
Yeah, although I think again having the pipe replaced or the outlet pipe replaced does require more excavation, and so I would want to make sure your construction plan specifically calls out avoiding stockpiling in the 50-foot buffer as much as possible, and robust erosion controls, because things, as Kyle said, things can be unpredictable, especially now with COVID. You think something's coming and it doesn't arrive, and then you've got the site open for a longer period, and then whoops, we get a 3-inch rain thunderstorm. So I just think some opening the site up a little more than originally anticipated, and I just want to make sure that those items in the plan are robust.
Yep, understood.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve these changes as a minor modification because they are maintaining kind of existing conditions. At least where the roadway was, it remains, but they're making it wider, and where the drain is, they're replacing it. So, in my opinion, it could be approved as a minor modification. How about the rest of the commission?
Do I hear a second to that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Guess we have a roll call vote again.
Hey, Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Jim,
James Pickett, aye.
Andrew,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Anna,
Anna Mayer, aye.
and Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Hey, there you go.
Thank you for hearing us tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you. Too.
Thank you.
So we did get to the dog leash law. I think we just kicked that down to June 15th, unless you want to have any kind of discussion about it now.
Maybe like a super brief one.
Sorry?
Maybe like a super brief one, because I know LCT was kind of looking to us for like an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit moot right now because there is a 100% leash law right now because the Board of Selectmen put that into place. But whenever they lift that, I think we need to discuss how to deal with unleashed dogs.
Yeah. So according to Jim's email that went out, Jim O'Neill, Director of Land Stewardship, was he wondering, did he want direction from us under the current state though, or when the bylaw goes back to normal?
When it goes back.
Yeah, when it goes back, because he was actually reciting what was currently in the regulation, not the emergency state code of the state. But,
I mean, what kind of input would we have on a rule right now that says you have to have your dog leashed at all times?
Well, he was going into the fine details of what heel meant because
with the original, with the bylaw, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
if they're not unleashed, they have to be beside the owner at heel. And so he was pointing out the word beside and the fact that, you can't have a dog running in front of the owner and have that meaning that the dog is beside them. So I don't know. I agreed with his interpretation. But I mean, it takes a lot to enforce it because it's hard to have evidence and you have to gather witnesses and I don't know, it would be.
Well, that's always going to be the case, no matter what you say.
Yeah,
that's true.
There's almost that ambiguity, right? I mean, that's the issue right now is the ambiguity. So if there's a consistent message, right, that's kind of what they're looking for. And I think that makes sense.
We can't hear you, Anna.
Muted.
he said the signage was wrong at some of our conservation areas.
Right.
That the wording didn't reflect actually what the regs say. So we'll have to watch out for that.
And then the intent, I think, too, just that we're, commission is here to protect the conservation land, right? And the whatever is being posted, the intent is to help protect the conservation land, and obviously people too, but for the wildlands, they can't speak for themselves.
I think we're experiencing a large amount of traffic on all our pieces of property right now, and hopefully some of it'll slow down a little bit once people actually get back to work, but maybe it's the new norm. I don't know for sure, but I know Oak Hill is getting way overused at this point in time, and I assume some of the other properties are too.
It's going to take a while because, I know at least for the state, even if we go back to work, it's not going to be all at once. It's going to be a phased thing. So not all of us are going to be able to go back. So we're going to spend a significant amount of time still at home.
I think we're just going to need to get more conservation land.
Absolutely.
Donate now, it'll be dog free. Or person free.
Well, did anybody ever think of having a dog park?
Yeah,
People have?
That's been encouraged by Park and Rec.
yeah, that's not us.
But that's a whole different situation too.
Anyway,
What could be a possibility if we have maybe one piece of our conservation land that allows dogs? You know, a piece that we've made a determination could handle that kind of thing, so it's not like you know, an important wildlife area. I mean, there are certain pieces of land that would be
Or
more
utilize the redevelopment, all that work that's going into redeveloping abandoned, you know, facilities. That's probably even better. That way you're not sacrificing valuable conservation land that's being overused as it is.
right.
Focus more on the redevelopment.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but it may be in our best interest.
Or build it into the new library.
Hey, there you
Yeah.
go.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
Pollinator garden.
No, where the knotweed is. Make the dogs kill the knotweed.
The knotweed's getting dug out,
Yeah, let's see.
theoretically.
Theoretically. 4 feet.
No, but it is something to think about, because we do that even with Fish and Wildlife Service. If there's a piece of land that we feel is not as important or lesser important for our mission, but we wind up acquiring it, we at some point would let other uses occur than we typically would.
I guess I've really liked that the trails are so busy. I know it's been causing some conflict and strife on occasion, but I also think, like, with respect to even like the rocks, like the long game is like get people out appreciating conservation land. I think it's important to not have more barriers than necessary, you know, getting people out. And, you know, so hiking with a dog is fun. I've never had a dog that I could trust. You know, and I had a very reactive dog. So like I moved to Littleton and I couldn't even walk my dog because other dogs would approach me, and then therefore my dog would fight the other dog, even though my dog, you know, is on a leash. So I think there's a larger, I know we're not trying to have this conversation tonight. I do think there's a larger conversation, but I do think there's something to be said for, you know, trying to include whatever type of user we can in a reasonable fashion. But I do think folks are experiencing, you know, things that are, you know, they shouldn't be experiencing with, you know, dogs that are not well behaved too. So.
well, I think it's a public issue. We don't want anybody getting hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right now, it is the town bylaw that says either on leash or at heel beside or whatever the actual phrasing is. So I don't know if someone wanted to take a crack, if you wanted to keep that or suggest that that be changed, or if someone wants to take a crack at whoops, and then they can pick it up when they're done and walk off with it.
No, the dog would take a crap.
Yeah.
Leash dogs can also take a crap. It doesn't matter if they're on leash or not.
No.
At least it's, you know, on the trail, not in the woods somewhere.
Right.
Right. No, there's a water quality issue too, for sure, with feces.
I mean, isn't there an agricultural piece of land maybe that we could at least temporarily, if it's not used as agricultural right now, since it might be upland, to use it for dog park? Could look at
Those
that.
Cooper fields that are full of knotweed.
What about, yeah. No, it's a good point, Anna. That's the kind of thing I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, either way, you're going to have people coming out on both sides. very strongly. What do you mean I can't take my dog for a walk in the woods?
Yeah.
Or let them off the leash to go swimming, or, you know. So it's an extremely tough issue.
Yeah.
We're
I
allowed
think,
suggested now,
I think we kind of need to table this for tonight and move on to the executive session. And to give it some more thought, would be my opinion.
All right.
agree. Yeah, and for now, we're under COVID rules anyways, so
Right.
Yeah.
It's like Amy said, it's moot right now. Yeah.
we've got time, but there's a lot of public interest, so I think we need to include public input if we're gonna have this, you know, when it's time to have the discussion.
Yeah. And set aside half an hour or so.
Yeah.
The trigger event though was a dog being off leash even under COVID, right? Wasn't that from the email?
People are still not complying.
Well, several, but yeah.
So
Yep.
But there's not much to be done about that. You know, we basically are discouraging people from confronting someone else. You know, you can say something, but don't, you know, and it's not the public's job to monitor themselves. That's the way it's notification. And, you know, what can the police do about it? It's as Anderson said, I think, you know, by the time you get your pictures or something, you know, everything's gone.
Right.
There's a sidewalk this morning in Acton, and it's for 50. Well, it's just for apartment rentals, and dogs are allowed, and they DNA test the dogs. So they know if they find poop outside, they know who's dog.
Wow.
Wow.
sure is the 21st century.
I thought that was great. And I think three strikes and you're out.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Out of curiosity, is what the Colbert thing pointed, is that printed and posted at the kiosk, so there's no question about that they're supposed to have the dog on?
Oh yeah,
leash and
there's
whatnot?
pink signs at every trailhead. I didn't even bother putting them on the kiosk because no one looks at the kiosks anymore. I just
Okay,
put 'em
well, that's what I mean. As long as we're covered, as
Yeah.
we've posted it, that's per order of the police department,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're to the point where we adjourn this meeting and go into executive session. Is that what
Yep, I got
needs
some
to
language.
happen?
So Mark, we're going to be fading out at this point. If someone would like to move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to consider funding of the purchase of 119 Tehadawon Drive Road as part of ongoing negotiations, and then to close the public hearing at the end of the executive session and to not return to open session.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it. Since Julie, you can have the
All
motion.
right, now I'll do a roll call. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Andrew, you've all changed your location.
Andrew Samarco, yes.
Julie,
Julie Roth, aye.
Anna,
Anna Mayer, aye.
Jim,
Jim, aye.
and Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
All right, Mark, we are done. So he's going to stop recording.